We'll start today's episode with a confession. I hate telling people what I do for work. I hate telling people that I'm a lawyer. I've never loved it. I've never identified with it, whether it's the job or the culture, all of the baggage bolted to it. It never really seemed to fit me very well. It never really felt like mine, and I always felt like the outsider. So when people tell me I'm not like any lawyer they've ever met, I take that as a really big compliment because there's plenty not to like about my fabled profession. The hours, the pomposity, the superiority complex that so many of us have, none of that sat right with me. That being said, explain this one to me then. If I don't really identify with being a lawyer, if I'd be happy never saying that word again, then why does the thought of actually leaving law feel like losing myself? Those two states aren't supposed to live in the same body. You don't get to hate the job and then dread the leaving at the same time. It doesn't really make sense, right? Not unless the leaving was never really about the job itself. And for me, I don't think it is. I've thought about this at length just to be sure, and it isn't the job. For me, my identity was never being the lawyer. It was what the lawyer let me become. And that's not what I do. I could hand that back tomorrow without a care in the world. It's what I think I am worth. And that's today's story. You've built the career. You're building the portfolio. You're close to freedom. So what now? Welcome to Life After Enough. Money, meaning, and the life you design when work becomes optional. I'm Nick. I'm racing towards early retirement and figuring out who I become when the job no longer dictates what I do with my time. Let's get into it. Let me go back to the start. I didn't fall into law not caring. I loved it. At least the study of it. After state school education, university was an explosion of ideas and knowledge and culture and people. It was a whole new world I'd never been let near. A brilliant teacher at college lit it all up and made me want to go to law school. That love was real. And there was the other pull. I come from a working class town, and law just seemed to me as this golden ticket out. So that gave me a lot of ambition. I had the love of law from the study, and I had the ambition to try and make something of myself. But then I started practicing law. And to be honest, the practice of it killed it for me. The intense, brutal law firm culture, the industry, and most of all, the stress. I'll give you one example. A trader once screamed down the phone that I was costing him $60 million because I wouldn't sign off on a contract. The contract was written in Spanish, and it was governed by Spanish law. I couldn't read a single word of it. 60 million, though, that was all on me. That was my fault for refusing to rubber stamp something I had no way to check. And that wasn't even a bad day. That was just a day. Whatever I'd loved got ground out of me on days like that, over and over and over again. So look at what that leaves you with. The industry killed off the love and passion I started out with as a wide-eyed law student, and my ambition was muted because the job was not something I then wanted to do. So then why stay? What was it then keeping me there? I've come to realize that it was the identity of being the high earner. And that's the one I can't really put down at the moment. I don't care about the title. I don't care about how it looks to anyone, but it was the earning itself. So before we go any further, I want to take apart the story you've probably already been telling yourself, listening to all of that. It's the money. You'll never earn like this again. This is the golden goose, and the day you let go of it, the door clicks shut behind you, and the payslip never gets this big again. Walk away from that, and you'd be mad. And that part's true. You probably won't earn like this again, and neither will I. But look at it properly. When you're at the point of making your career exit, you do have enough money. You've done the maths. That's the whole reason you're listening to a show like this about leaving work. If it really were just the money, you'd be gone already, because the money says you can. So if it's not the money is just what you point at, so you don't have to look any harder. It can act as a cover story, a good one, but that's all it is. Here's a second story I tell myself, and this one's a little harder. It's that I don't identify with being a lawyer. I'm not like the others. I never wanted this. You've heard me. I've built half of a personality on it. But let me look at that again with fresh eyes, because I'm not sure it's the honest take on all of this. What if I actually liked it? Liked the work, was good at it, never really minded the money, and the truth is that I just couldn't hack it. That the stress got to me in a way it didn't seem to get into anyone else, that I took every hit personally and carried it home. The I'm not like other lawyers part is a much nicer thing to say than I cracked. Looking at the evidence to see if there's any truth to that, you'd see this. I will miss the work, the rigor of it, being the one they came to when it had all gone wrong and no one else could fix it. If I never identified with any of this, why does it still get to me? And another one. Once I got screamed at for finding 2 articles out of 3 in a search half the London legal press couldn't help me with. 2 of 3 impossible needles in a haystack. And I ended the day not angry for being shouted at, but feeling I'd let myself down, like the missing one proved I wasn't good enough for the job. That's not the job being brutal. That's me handing the job the right to decide whether I'm good enough. And I did it every time. The 60 million guy, I was right, and I still carried it home. A tougher lawyer forgets it by lunch. I'm still telling you about it years later. So maybe I'm not like other lawyers just means that they could take it and I couldn't. Maybe I've been dressing too thin-skinned for this up as too principled for this the whole time. Honestly, I don't really know anymore. I've worn the story for so long, I can't really see the wood for the trees. But here's why none of that actually matters. If you strip away every one of those stories, it's the money, I never liked it, I was too good for it, I wasn't tough enough. Pick whichever's true in your own career as well. All of them at once or none of them, something else. But the earning power is still the one thing I can't put down. The stories all argue with each other for space in the narrative, but the earning power is the constant. But the what I think I'm worth pillar doesn't budge. That's the one that's actually holding the exit door shut. And before you sit there thinking this is just my particular baggage, I don't think it is. Flipping this now to your story and the story of all high earners really, you don't get hooked on the earning by accident, and you're not weak for falling for it. You were trained into it for years by a system built to do exactly that. Think about what the job actually does to you. It takes your time and it turns it straight into money. An hour of your life aligned on a bill. It takes your worth and puts a price on it. For lawyers, that's down to 6-minute increments. Then it ranks you. It bands you. It tells you every year in a single number what you're worth next to the person sitting beside you. Hit the target or you're the problem. Up or out. Do that for 10 or 15 years, and of course you start reading your own value off the number. That's not a character flaw. That's actually the training landing and having an impact on you mentally. The whole thing is built to make you believe the number is the worth, because someone who believes that will build 2,500 hours a year and call it ambition. So when I say the high earning status got hold of you, I'm not calling you shallow. I'm saying you did the work. You got very good at a thing that was teaching you something false the entire time. And leaving doesn't just cost you the income. It asks you to unbelieve something a decade or more of your life drilled into your bones. Quick one before we continue. I send a weekly email every Monday morning that goes deeper than the podcast. It's not a recap, it's a separate idea, usually something more personal, plus a question to sit with for the week. It's free, it's one email, and you can sign up at lifeafterenough.com. Link is in the show notes. Okay, back to it. So we've stripped off the money, we've stripped off the stories, and seen how it got drilled into us by our careers. What's then left standing? The thing actually keeping you, as it does me, at your desk. Could it then be being the earner? The high earner identity fused onto what you think you're worth. But here's the real question. If it's only an identity, why is it so hard to put it down? Why can't you just decide you're done and walk out? I think to look at this properly requires us to give this a proper name, because leaving is too small a word for it. What's in front of you isn't just an exit. It's more of a runway, and an identity runway at that. You have to reach the end of that runway before you're truly ready to start your next chapter. Let me tell you what I mean. When you exit and start living off your FIRE portfolio, one major shift happens. You're going from a high earner to a subsistence earner. By that, I don't mean broke or struggling. In the FIRE world, subsistence means a good quality of life, which we've intentionally planned for. The portfolio holds, the light stays on, and the holidays still happen. On paper, you're completely fine. But for the FIRE folk leaning hard into the RE or retire early side of the concept, the active earning, the thing you do that makes the real money, that drops to a trickle. And the version of you that was built on it has to be retired as well, slowly, while you're still stood there watching. It's hard to understand what pressure and emotions you feel during that process. So let's just do a thought experiment and give it a try. The first month the number doesn't climb, something in you will probably flinch. I felt this on my sabbatical. You've watched it climb for years, and that climb was the proof that you told yourself every day had counted for something. But now it just sits there. After years of nothing but upward motion, a number just sitting still doesn't feel steady. It actually feels like something is slipping away. But then there's even more than that, when it's the drawing down. The first time you take your money out instead of putting it in, your gut will probably not like it. You spent years stacking that money up, and now you're pulling from the pile. The first few times you do this will feel strange and unsettling, no matter what the math says. Then we have the first time someone asks you what you do, and you haven't got the answer ready anymore. There's a half second of nothing, that little gap where the title used to sit, before you mumble something vague and watch them not quite know where to put you. But underneath all of that, there's our favorite little voice that chimes in. One more year, rebuild the buffer, you've still got it in you. Why waste good earning years sitting around doing nothing? As we know, the voice is so reasonable, and that's the trap. It's the armor talking you into keeping it on a little longer. And here's why it can hurt. Nobody is taking this from you. You're choosing it. You're waking up and walking away from the most stable, status-soaked part of your life and deliberately switching it off. So when the doubt comes, and it will come, there's no boss to blame, there's no market crash, nobody did this to you. You did this to you, which means every wobble has nowhere to go but straight back inward. Did I just throw away the best thing about me? Try and notice what all of that actually is. The flinch at the flat number, the apprehension of drawing down. We call it nerves or cold feet or not being ready. I don't think it's any of those. I think it's actually grief. You'll be grieving a version of yourself. And the twist of the knife is that you're choosing to bury someone who's still alive. That's why gritting your teeth doesn't really touch it. You don't willpower your way through grief. It comes in waves. It doesn't care what the spreadsheet says, and you don't get over it. You go through it. So if you're stood on your number, free to walk, and something in you is mourning, you're not weak and you're not getting cold feet. I think you're grieving a version of yourself who you've not properly said goodbye to yet. And if you want to know why that grief runs as deep as it does, why losing this one thing feels less like a change and more like a death, you have to understand what the earning actually became for me. It was never just earning. It was armor. Years ago, I left law properly, as most of you will know by now. It wasn't a sabbatical. I burnt the bridges and I went and built a business. The big brave exit that everyone claps for. And it failed. The money ran out, and for a stretch there, a real one, I was nobody. The thing I'd used my whole life to know I was okay was gone. So I came back to law on purpose, eyes opened, walked straight back into the work that had hollowed me out, because being miserable turned out to be a lot more survivable than being nobody. And I didn't just rebuild the income. I rebuilt the high earner identity harder than it had ever been, tighter and heavier than before as well. Because somewhere in that stretch, I made a decision I never said out loud. Never again. Never be that exposed again. If you're trying to work out the same thing I am, is it the job or is it what the job made you? Those two need completely different things from you. One you can quit, the other you have to grow out of. Get them the wrong way round and you'll quit, feel worse, and never work out why. So here's the test. Picture handing it all back, then take the pieces apart, one at a time. The work itself? Gone. Could you live with that? Well, probably, after a bit of a grieve. The title? Gone. For some of you, that's the wrench, but for me, that's relief. The earning? Gone. The high earner version of you switched off. Now feel which one of those drops your stomach. Which one would genuinely feel hardest? That's the one your identity is welded to. That's where the work is. And do what I just did. Strip the stories you tell yourself off first. It's the money might be cover for, it's who I am without it. I never liked this job might be cover for, I couldn't hack the job. The stories are the comfortable answer. The stomach drop is the honest one. Try and find where those points lie. So that's where I'll leave you, not somewhere nice and tidy. I haven't solved this. I'm out on the runway right now, the same as you probably. But I know for me what the work is now, and it isn't financial. You can have every number green and still not be able to move because the thing in the doorway was never the money. It was never really the job. It's the worth. It's who being the earner made me and whoever the job made you. And you don't fix that with a bigger buffer. You fix it by slowly becoming someone whose worth isn't wired to what you do, the earning, the title, whatever yours turned out to be. And that's the reason the money being sorted didn't set you free, by the way. Money was never the missing piece. You poured everything into one pillar that paid, the earning, and the job quietly ate the hours you'd have spent building any of the others. So you arrive at the door with plenty in the bank and nothing else to stand on, and you mistake that for not having enough. You had enough, you just never built the rest. That's the work, not tearing yourself off the earning with nothing underneath, but building something worth stepping into. That's this whole month. So here's the one thing to carry out the door. Stop interrogating the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet was always going to say go, at least eventually. But go and find the piece you can't picture losing, and then try and start there. Before I go, one thing. If any of that landed, the obvious question is where you actually stand. Not the money. You already know the money is fine or you have a plan to make sure it is. But the other four. The ones you let slide while you built the one that paid. I made something for that. It's called the Freedom Score. 5 pillars. It takes about 2 minutes. And at the end, it tells you which one is going to be the problem when you stop working. For most people, it isn't the one they'd have guessed. The link is in the show notes wherever you're listening. Thanks for listening to Life After Enough, a podcast about money, meaning, and the life you design when work becomes optional. If this episode made you rethink your future, share it with someone who's starting to question the script too. You can follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Nick, and I'll see you next week as we keep building a life that's truly ours.